Let's begin with breaking updates now coming in. The U.S. Central Command has launched a series of military strikes against the Iranian targets in response to what it says were Iranian attacks on 3 commercial vessels. So we're seeing tensions flare up in the region yet again, with U.S. citing Iranian attack on 3 commercial vessels, after which the U.S. has launched these attacks. Now, this is in the Strait of Hormuz. Reports suggest the strikes are intended to impose heavy costs on Iran for targeting civilian crude commercial shipping in international waters, with Washington describing the attacks as an unjustified act of aggression and violation of recent ceasefire. So there is a confirmation that has come in as well from the U.S. Central Command, launching a series of military strikes, and that's what the social media post by the U.S. Central Command goes on to say, confirming these strikes, and also going on to say this is after the response from the Iranian side that U.S. has launched these attacks. So here is what it goes on to say. U.S. Central Command forces have begun launching a series of powerful strikes. My colleague Akanksha joins us on the broadcast with the details. Akanksha, so U.S. has confirmed these strikes. What are the details? Because U.S. says that it is only because of the Iranian attack that U.S. launched these strikes.
Right, but the response that we are also getting from the Iranian side is what I'll just share in a bit. But remember, the U.S. strikes, according to the U.S. CENTCOM, are in response to what they are saying Iranian attacks on 3 commercial vessels that were transiting the Strait of Hormuz. And they've gone on to say that in their post that Iran's demonstrated aggression was unwarranted, dangerous, and a clear violation of the ceasefire. To which several reactions have in fact come in from Iran as well. But more importantly, we are being told that the targeting of the Qatari vessel, which was one of the vessels that was transiting the Strait of Hormuz, it was called Al-Reignited, while transiting near the Strait of Hormuz, they're saying that it constitutes an unacceptable attack on the security and safety of international maritime navigation, the security of global energy supplies. And Iran's actions, of course, are being condemned. They're being called unacceptable by the United States. But remember, we speak at a time when the funeral ceremony for the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is still very much on. His mortal remains are going to be arriving in Qom. So this kind of the kind of reaction that we are seeing is extremely worrisome at the moment. Gharibadi from Iran has gone on to, in fact, say that the US's actions in revoking the waiver for the exemption of sanctions on Iran's oil sales constitutes a blatant violation, because that's exactly how the United States has responded. And this is now leading to a fresh sort of domino effect that we are seeing play out at a time when, remember, our own External Affairs Minister is on a West Asia tour. The entire, global dignitaries to journalists have descended upon Iran. And the U.S. President himself is very much in attendance at the NATO summit, where, remember, leading NATO powers, including the United States, France, Syria and Turkey, are all going to be in attendance. So we'll have to see how quickly these escalating tensions can be calmed down. But there are a series of reactions that have come in from across the parties involved in the West Asia disturbances. That also includes Qatar. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Qatar has also reacted. They're saying that they've, of course, condemned this attack, calling the incident a grave violation of international maritime safety. And more importantly, we'll have to see how India manages to secure its own vessels that are currently transiting the strait.
Okay, all right, Akanksha, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. So yet again, there are questions on the free movement of vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. And senior journalist Matthew Wadham joins us on the broadcast. Good morning and thank you for joining us. Again, there are concerns, and it has happened, unfortunately, consistently. But just when it looked like things were returning to some sort of normalcy, U.S. says that Iran has attacked vessels, after which the U.S. has also launched strikes.
Well, yeah, Iran is trying to provoke the United States. It's trying to test President Trump's will because President Trump, they know, wants out of this conflict badly. And, he gave up on the idea of regime change a long time ago. And so they are going to continue. Iranians are probably going to continue provoking the United States for the time being. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes on until November when the congressional midterm elections take place here in the United States. The Iranians, I think, want to cause as much trouble as they can for Donald Trump so that his party loses the elections and loses control of Congress. The Iranians, they view negotiations as a game, as a way to keep extending their heinous behavior, their persecution of citizens internally and suppressing dissent. They view this as just a big game. And they're pretty good at doing it. They're pretty good at manipulating affairs and provoking the United States. So I imagine they're going to keep attacking ships. One of the ships was a Qatari ship. Qatar is a strong ally of the United States, so I don't think that was a mistake. The Iran wants to send the message to vessels transiting through the waters near it that they are not safe and that Iran is the dominant power in the region.
Okay, all right. Stay with us. In fact, we have more breaking updates coming in. The United States has revoked a general license that had authorized the sale of Iranian oil, citing Tehran's alleged actions in the Strait of Hormuz as wholly unacceptable following the recent attacks on commercial tankers. The move comes after 3 tankers reportedly sustained damage from the unidentified projectiles in and around the strategic waterway, based on a report by the UK Maritime Trade Operation. So the United States has now revoked a general license that has authorized the sale of Iranian oil after these attacks. So, Mr. Vedam, what next? Are we looking at a situation returning to what it was just a few weeks ago at the peak of the war? Because the negotiations have taken place, but clearly on ground, it seems to be going back to how it was a few weeks ago.
Well, you're right. I think it is heading back to the way things were a few weeks ago. And as I said a moment ago, I think Iran is fine with that. They want to continue pushing Donald Trump and cajoling the United States to see what they can get away with. Ultimately, the memorandum of understanding, the negotiation period is 60 days, but I doubt they're going to resolve the outstanding issues within 60 days. This is going to they're going to get an extension, and it's going to drag on and on and on. And this is the way that Iranians have dealt with their adversaries for years. They, pretend to make concessions. They pretend that they're not pursuing nuclear weapons, and then when they get an opportunity, they start pursuing nuclear weapons again. So this is something that they've gotten. They've gotten very good at playing the international diplomatic system for their advantage. And there's really, from their perspective, there's nothing to be gained from stopping. If they stop, they don't know where things are going to end up. If they continue to disrupt the process by attacking ships, then they know that they can drag out this conflict long enough to suit their purposes, which, as I alluded to a moment ago, I think they want to defeat Donald Trump's Republican Party in the November election. And if the war continues, and if the price of gasoline in the United States remains high because oil is not getting through the Strait of Hormuz and the waters around it, that is going to adversely impact President Trump's popularity and probably hurt Republicans in the election. So this is all just a game to the Iranians, whereas the Americans want to, I think, genuinely want to achieve certain goals, such as nuclear non-proliferation, and have a freely navigable Strait of Hormuz, whereas the Iranians they just keep poking their fingers in the eye of their enemies and provoking them ad infinitum. This is just what they do.
Okay, in fact, we have a statement that has come in from Qatar. Qatar has strongly condemned the reported targeting of the Saudi oil tanker while it transited the Strait of Hormuz. So Qatar has described the incident as a serious violation of international maritime safety, a threat to global energy supplies, and a breach of international law. In a statement, the Qatar Ministry of Foreign Affairs has warned that continued attacks risk escalating regional tensions, undermining maritime security, and jeopardizing the progress that has been achieved under the US-Iran Memorandum of Understanding. And this was aimed at de-escalation, and Doha has now called on Iran to immediately halt the action that threatened regional security and international navigation. So, Mr. Wadham, while talks were going on between US and Iran, there was one concern, and that was to bring Israel as well as Lebanon on the table as well, or have negotiations. But the US was also brokering or was also aiding in these talks between Israel and Lebanon as well. So it seemed like there could be larger peace in the region. But despite all of those efforts, we're looking at a situation that is increasing, and it threatens to now disrupt the peace in the entire region. What do you think could happen next? There is a lot of concern because it is going to impact economies of the entire world, just as it was stabilizing.
Right. Well, this idea that that the conflict in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah is part of the larger Iran war. This is a position taken by the Trump administration and by the Iranian government. They see it as all, it's all one thing, whereas the Israelis don't see it as one thing. They see their conflict with Hezbollah, which rarely adheres to peace deals and continues attacking and threatening Israel. Hezbollah continues to attack, and Israel continues to defend itself. And President Trump, so far, has not been able, even though he's called up Benjamin Netanyahu on the phone and screamed at him, according to reports. Netanyahu is not backing down, and he's saying, we respect our ally, the United States, and President Trump, but we're going to defend ourselves. I'm not surprised that Hezbollah is continuing to attack, because Hezbollah is an arm of the Iranian government, and it is trying to stir things up. To keep the conflict alive, because ultimately the Iranians want to destroy Israel. They've said so, they have rallies about it every few days, calling Israel the little Satan and the United States the great Satan. So they really don't want peace. When they say they want peace, that's just a public relations posture that they're taking.
Okay, all right. So that means that we may be looking at yet again a return to the peak of the war, and yet again peace in the region being threatened. Mr. Matthew Maiden, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. There is a lot of concern on the situation there, and it impacts the entire world.
Sure.
The next few hours is going to be very, very important to see whether other commercial vessels can pass through the Strait of Hormuz. With that, we're slipping into a very short break here, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with lots more on the other side.